Hi everyone, this is Courtney. I'm coming to you as I'm editing this episode. I just wanted to remind you that this is a podcast run by therapists and not audio engineers, and so unfortunately you are going to hear a lot of breathing and clicking in this episode basically every time we move, and I really apologize for that. We are learning as we go, and I think we are improving with every episode. But I hope that you'll stick around and listen to this episode as we review Inside Out 2. It was a really fun episode to record, and I hope you let us know what you think outside of the annoying audio. Thank you. Welcome to Mental Health Dumpster Fire. My name is Courtney Laver, licensed clinical social worker.
And my name is Jess Miller, art therapist.
We are two therapists, and we have opinions, and we're going to tell you those opinions today. You can follow us online. Our podcast is Mental Health Dumpster Fire on TikTok and Instagram, and I am Laver Listens on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
And I am the Artsy Brain on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not on TikTok yet, though.
This podcast is only for entertainment and educational purposes. It's not a replacement for therapy, and we cannot give you specific advice or clinical services via this podcast or our social media. So let's go ahead and get started. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Had some nice time outside last week and got sunburnt.
Okay.
But it was nice to be outside.
It was like a lot cooler last week, so
yeah, it felt a lot better.
It was a good time to be outside.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm very backlogged on paperwork, but that's kind of my baseline is behind on paperwork.
It's not unheard of. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'll get there eventually, but yeah, overall, pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, today, as promised in last week's episode, we are doing a review of Inside Out 2.
Woo.
There will be spoilers because we have to talk about this for an hour, so we can't just do the trailer.
So yeah, if you haven't seen the movie, stop listening to the podcast, go watch the movie, and then come back. This is your warning. Give you like 10 seconds to stop. Okay.
There are some people who like to know spoilers before they go into things.
I am so bad like TV shows that are based on books.
Okay.
And I haven't read the books, but I need to know how it ends. Like Bridgerton on Netflix is based on books.
Oh,
and I was like, I need to know who's marrying who and who ends up with who and like what's happening. And then I spoiler myself, but
that's Shonda Rhimes, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So doesn't she like change stuff?
She has in that show. She has from the books a little bit, yeah. But I guess not enough. I looked up what was going to happen, and then it happened in the show. So I knew what was
I have not watched Bridgerton, but I hear it's good.
It's entertaining. It's definitely entertaining.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're not talking about Bridgerton today.
Sorry. Got real derailed.
Inside Out 2, which is very different. Yeah. So I saw this movie 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think like the day after you saw it.
Yeah, because we almost saw it on the same day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go to the theater near here?
I went to the Baxter
Theater. We would have run into each other.
That's
again.
so funny. Yeah. It's weird seeing each other in public. It's only happened once so far, but still. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. So I really liked it. I loved the first one. As a baby therapist, I was like, show this to everybody.
Because that came out 2015? 2016?
Yeah, it was like almost 10 years ago.
Wow, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I guess I wasn't a therapist yet, but I was on my way to being a therapist. What? I'm going to look it up.
Look up when it actually came out. Because now that I'm thinking about it. 2015? Okay.
Yeah. 2015.
Wow.
So I was graduating from undergrad.
Me too.
That year. And
what time of year did it come out?
It debuted at the Cannes Film Festival.
Oh, yeah.
In May. of 2015, and then was released on June 19th. So summer.
Yeah.
So I had graduated undergrad, and I don't remember if I saw it exactly at that time, but I remember liking it. And then I remember when I would do in-home therapy, I would take my laptop with me and we would watch scenes from it. With a lot of the kids that I saw, because I really liked, especially the scene where Sadness is sitting with the imaginary friend and letting him cry and feel his feelings, and Joy is trying to cheer him up and be like, no, it's okay, let's keep going, let's just push through it. And Sadness is like, no, let's sit and feel our sadness.
Yeah,
and then he got up and he was ready to go. So I liked that a lot, so I showed that a lot to people. And then I really liked this one too, because it's just like, throw all the emotions in there. Let's learn them all. There was a lot more like elements to this one.
Yeah, they definitely, and it makes sense because the main character, Riley, is entering puberty. That's that scene was hilarious. Of it like happened overnight. Well, not happened overnight, but they like destroyed the console or whatever, and then it's like a work in progress for the entire movie.
Yes, yeah. They put the sign up that was like, "Pardon our dust."
Yeah, so funny. Yeah, but it's so true, because like it like feels like it happens, and then it's like you feel just stuck in puberty for so long.
Yes, yeah. It like starts very sudden, especially for girls, but like it starts like overnight, and then it's like keeps going and dragging for like 10 years or however long. I don't know how long. I should know how long puberty is.
It feels forever.
But yeah, no, I really liked the metaphor of that, and like the big blaring alarm,
the
and
puberty
the panic.
Alarm.
Yeah.
The panic alarm, and the emotions having no idea what was going on too. That was, I thought that was kind of cool, because they're like, okay, we figured things out, we got this system in control, and then that happens.
Yeah, that very first scene where she's playing her little hockey game, and all the original emotions are like all working together, and they all have their own little part in it. And I was like, oh my god, they figured out, they're like a well-oiled machine now, because in the first one it was like, no, Joy felt like she needed to have control over everything, and didn't want any of the other emotions to be involved. So they figured out that, like, for the most part, there's not good and bad emotions. Every emotion has a purpose.
Yes.
And so that's kind of how they start out, as like, we've all figured out how to get along and get to work together and let everybody shine.
Yes.
And then the new ones came, and they were like, oh no, we don't know how to work with you.
Yeah. And the emotion, like little memory emotion ball things, instead of all being just one color in the beginning of the second movie, they start to have like different colors in them. So it's not just one emotion in that moment, it's multiple. And I thought that was cool too.
Yeah.
That shows like that Riley was growing up a little bit more too. And then the belief tree.
Yeah, the belief system.
And I love Joy's little like contraption she made to just like yeet the bad stuff into the back of the mind. Like, we're not gonna think about that.
Yeah.
And how that like comes back later in the movie to kind of kick him in the butt.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty clever. But the little system was funny. She just like pulls this thing down and is like, goodbye.
Yeah, her little homemade thing that is not supposed to be there.
It's so cute.
Yeah.
So basically, joy, sadness, fear, anger, disgust, the 5 main emotions from the first movie are in the second one. Riley is 13 now. She's developing her sense of self or self-concept, which is a psychology thing. And her whole thing is, I'm a good person.
Yeah.
That's what her little belief tree, when it lights up, that's what it says.
Yeah. And so, and that was interesting too, because even though all the emotions had figured out how to work together and let each other have their moments, Joy was still picking and choosing mostly joyful emotions and memories to bring down into that little river of belief.
The deep brain or whatever it's called. where they go down the elevator.
Yeah.
She puts it into the water.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then once she puts the memories in the water, they form the little string that goes up and forms her sense of self that she's a good person. And I really liked that metaphor for it, because we saw like the islands of personality in the first one, and those were still there. Mm-hmm. But to have a belief system and like explain that our experiences and our thoughts about those experiences and our emotions about those form beliefs that then form ourselves, like that's huge in therapy. Mm-hmm. Because that's our whole thing. Like when you have trauma, the things that have happened to you shape how you feel about certain things, and then when similar events happen again, that shapes how you react to it. Other people are going to react to the same event differently because of their past experiences and the beliefs that they formed about those things.
I really loved that metaphor too, of the memories making the roots, making your belief system, your belief tree, and then the like kind of like an affirmation almost, or like, this is what I believe about myself. I thought that's such a cool metaphor that can be used for like all ages.
Absolutely. And then the idea that, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but fine. The idea that anxiety could come in and just like rip that sense of self out and throw it to the back of the mind.
Yeah.
In addition to the puberty and all of the big changes that are about to happen, because she's going to go to high school, and then she finds out that her friends aren't going to go to the same school as her. So she's kind of lost that sense of self anyway, because she's like, my whole world is different now.
Yeah.
So do I even know who I am?
Yeah.
And that fits into like the stages of development, because when you go into adolescence, I'll just explain Erickson's stages of development.
Sure.
Why not? So the first stage, birth to like 18 months, is trust versus mistrust. So you learn that the people in your life are either trustworthy or not trustworthy based on how quickly and consistently they respond to your needs. Then 18 months to 3 years old, autonomy versus shame and doubt. That's when you're a toddler and they start to insist that they do things by themselves, and they learn whether or not they are capable of doing things on their own, or if by trying to do things on their own they are shamed or told like, no, you don't know how to do that. Then they start to feel doubtful about their own abilities. Mm-hmm. Then you have 3 to 5 years old, initiative versus guilt. And that's definitely impacted by the previous stage of autonomy versus shame and doubt. So preschool years, they start interacting and socially playing with others, and they start to learn about like cause and effect. So their behaviors have influence over what the outcome is. They start to ask questions about everything.
Oh, yeah.
Where they start asking why after everything. If parents are controlling or don't support their child when they make decisions, the child may not be equipped to take initiative. They may lack ambition and could be filled with guilt. Then stage 4, 5 to 12, that's kind of where we were watching Riley in the first movie. So industry versus inferiority. Mm-hmm. Elementary school ages, they learn new skills, and they start having more people in their lives that influence them and their beliefs and their thoughts. They start comparing themselves to others. They start to feel pride and accomplishment. And when they succeed, they feel industrious and believe that they can set goals and reach them. If they have repeated negative experiences at home, or they feel like society is too demanding, they feel inferior.
Yeah, so that's kind of like, that's bleeding from the first movie and then going into the second movie a little bit too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So now we're in stage 5 with Riley, the adolescence years of identity versus confusion. And this is when you're a teenager and you're trying to figure out, who am I? How do I fit into the world? What do I want to do as I get older? Mm-hmm. How can I contribute to society?
And then on top of that, your body's changing. So if you are an adolescent and you are able to try different things and experiment and figure out what kinds of things you're into, and that's why peer pressure is such a big thing for adolescents, because they need to figure out, like, do I fit in with these people? Do I not? Like, how do I navigate the world? Adolescents who successfully weather the crisis of this stage will come away with a strong sense of identity, and they'll be able to uphold these values despite challenges they'll face in the future. But when adolescents don't search for their identity, they may not develop a strong sense of self and won't have a clear picture of their future. The same confusion may reign supreme if a parent is trying to pressure them to conform to their own values and beliefs.
Yeah.
So role confusion is the opposite of finding a identity. So that's where Riley's starting right now. She has that sense of self from the previous stage.
Mm-hmm. And now it's being kind of challenged with her seeking a identity and figuring out who she is, that self-concept.
Yeah, and then she has so many decisions to make in this movie that go against what the original core emotions think she is as a person.
Yeah.
And then her making the different choices influences her sense of self as well.
Yeah. I think it's funny. We can see that change into that stage of like role confusion and identity in the like islands of the personality islands, and that she still has Family Island, but it's like real tiny, but it's still loving and there's light there, but it's real small. And then Friendship Island is like ginormous and has so much more going on. And I really liked that in the movie, because that's so representative of like preteen and teenagers. They're very into their peer group and like their friendships, and like that's kind of their whole life to them. And it's not that family isn't important, it's just that they're at this point where they're more independent now, and so they're going to hang out with their friends more and the people their age more and that kind of thing. I just thought it was a really funny representation in the movie that Family Island was so tiny.
Yeah, they were like, where's Family Island?
It's still there. I thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
There's some really funny little like bits, and Disney and Pixar are kind of known for that, for like throwing in some like bits for the parents, bits for the adults that are really funny. But that was one that I was like, oh yeah, like that's a complaint I get working with teenagers and their parents is, oh, they never want to hang out with us anymore. And
nope, they don't.
No, they're like 13 and in puberty. Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's rough for parents to hear that, but that's a normal part of their development.
Yeah, and the art of the islands too is so like like the way that you said, like Friendship Island was huge and it was so like bright and like there was like neon and everywhere. Yeah, and Family Island was like, it's there.
Yeah, like it had like a little light, like a little candle light kind of thing, and the mom and dad and Riley were there, but then like there were no like moving parts or roller coasters or anything.
Yeah,
I thought that was
just
funny.
less exciting.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah,
it's normal. It's a normal part.
Yeah.
And I also liked how the teeny tiny Family Island was also really close to Friendship Island. They were almost the same, because preteens, teenagers, their friends are like their family. Like that's the bond that they feel. It's like having family as their friends.
Right. Yeah.
I thought that was
good. Because that's the age where you start to have more control over who you spend time with.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I thought that was pretty clever. And then I was just thinking of other like funny bits. The sarcasm.
Oh my god, I loved the sarcasm.
That was so funny. Because they're all on one side and earnestly trying to talk to the worker guys on the other side. But then when they hear it over the sarcasm, it sounds sarcastic. And so they're like, we don't want to talk to you. You're mean.
You must be such good workers.
They were trying so hard. So funny.
Oh, man.
I loved that so much.
Yeah, the sarcasm. I've got a lot of sarcasms in my mind, I think.
Yeah.
They're deep.
They're deep. I know that one was pretty deep. I also liked the stream of thought as like a literal stream running through the brain. I thought that was really cool. And how like the like random thoughts that pop up in her head would be floating through the stream. Like the broccoli and the pizza, and they're like, she must be hungry.
Yeah. I mean, I even liked the idea of having things in the back of your mind
that huge
were
pile.
harder to recall than like the more organized thoughts on the little shelves.
Yeah, that was good. So when the like emotions first pop up, and it's like the new ones, the whole like console, everything's in disarray. It's like 2 a.m, and like anxiety pops up. Her like 10 things of luggage.
Yes,
it's like, I have some baggage with me. I have some anxious
you
baggage.
just got here.
Yeah. Just like all of that. And then the way she's like designed as a character, I thought the designs of these emotions were really clever from like an art standpoint. But she is like all teeth, but every time she smiles, it looks fake. Like I'm like trying really hard to look like I'm okay, but I'm actually not.
Yeah. And
the huge eyes with the eyebrows that aren't even attached, of like constantly looking out for danger. I thought they did a really good job of like making a little character to represent what anxiety feels like.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah. I liked Envy too, because she had those big eyes.
She's so cute.
Yeah. Yeah, she's just like always wide-eyed, just looking at everybody else.
Like little sparkles in her eyes, and she was so teeny tiny. She was very cute.
Yeah.
I love the voice actor for Envy is Io Edbury, I think is how you say her last name.
Okay.
She's hilarious and just a great, she's fun to listen to in interviews. She's really funny, but her as that character was perfect.
Yeah.
It was so good. I liked her. Let me see. I have pictures of all of them. Embarrassment as this like giant soft pink guy with a hoodie that he pulls over and like hides behind. I thought that was so cute.
Yeah.
I definitely know people who are like that. Like they just hide in their hoodies. Like, I'm too embarrassed to be out here. Yeah. And he never talks. I don't think he has a single line in the whole movie.
The very end.
Oh yeah, at the very end he does. But yeah, I really liked him. And he just like moves and always knocks something over or like does something embarrassing like that. I thought that was good. Good representation. Ennui was hilarious.
Yes.
And like dripping into the floor.
Just like I can't even be bothered to
or she was like on the couch all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, she had a phone that and with an app so she could control the console without having to get off the couch.
Yep.
It was so good. So good. What's the other new one? Anxiety, embarrass, envy, ennui. Oh, and nostalgia.
Yeah. So I liked that because part of like, obviously they had to kind of try to explain the plot hole of like, where did these emotions come from and why didn't we see them in the previous movie, like in the parents' minds and stuff like that. Yeah. So I like the idea that like they're just not driving all the time.
Yeah.
So they were
like, oh, it's not time for you yet, nostalgia.
Time. Yeah.
Go back into your little house with your little cup of tea or whatever she had.
Yeah.
I love nostalgia when she popped up as a character. I thought that was just so funny. This little grandma character to represent nostalgia, and she just pops up, do you remember when Riley did this and with her friends? And they're like, no, we're not ready for you yet. Like, hang on, we like, I think they tell her to like 10 more years or something like that. And then you can come out and hang out with us all the time. I thought that was so funny. And her character nostalgia has literally rose-colored glasses.
Aww.
So she's like looking back on memories with rose-colored glasses. I mean,
yeah, that's what nostalgia is.
Yeah, I thought that was so clever. I love character development art and stuff for Pixar movies. I love looking at them and kind of picking them apart a little bit. But yeah, I know nostalgia was only in the movie for like a minute, but she was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah, I hope they just keep making these movies.
Yes.
And just like bringing like, nostalgia can come back and be like,
Yeah, yeah.
we were 13.
That's she's just so cute. And it's also just like, oh, like, I really felt that. Like, yeah, I get really nostalgic sometimes and like a joyful, like a happy way. But like, you kind of get stuck in that, like, oh, remember when?
Yeah.
Especially with like old friends or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked that they put that in there. I thought that was good.
Yeah.
Because that kind of nostalgic feeling, I think, does pop up in puberty. Because you get a little nostalgic for like childhood.
Yeah.
So that can pop up, but it's not like when you're an adult and you're almost constantly nostalgic about the past.
Yeah, it's not exactly the same. I think it's kind of like nostalgia but confusion at the same time of like, I still kind of want to do these kid things.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
my peers are doing these more adult things, so how do I decide which one is me?
Yeah. That's a good point. Well, talking about the emotions and new emotions, I saw someone was talking about how there's like the 5 main emotions from the first movie, and that the new emotions, people were talking about, like, are these new emotions supposed to be like opposites or like counterparts to the core first 5, or are they 5 completely unrelated new emotions?
Mm-hmm.
So anxiety in the movie, she says something along the lines of like, she's trying to describe like her purpose. She's like, fear is here to help Riley with like immediate threats and danger, stuff that she can see.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here to help her for potential threats and danger for stuff she can't see.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like linking them together almost. So then I think I was on Reddit looking at stuff, and people were like talking about how the other emotion characters might like be counterparts for each other somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I did notice, obviously fear was like, yeah, we're gonna be friends.
Oh yeah.
And then I felt like envy and disgust kind of got along,
Mm-hmm.
and then obviously embarrassment helped sadness
Mm-hmm.
throughout the movie.
Yeah.
But I do feel like they're just new emotions that would have been hard to explain with just those 5 emotions. Like, disgust is different from envy.
Right.
So it would be hard to try to depict envy without that actual emotion there.
Yeah. And I think it's like, I see that connection, anxiety and fear for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also saw a connection between joy and nostalgia.
Yeah.
Like, joy is like your current present moment of joy, and nostalgia is thinking back on the things that make you happy. And then, yeah, like in the movie, they kind of put disgust and envy together. They almost kind of look alike.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put sadness and embarrassment together, and they almost kind of look alike too.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's like a really strong like connection, like they're partners together, working together. I think you're right. Like, they're all separate emotions. They just also like are supposed to all work together.
Right.
So there's going to be some things in common, but they all have different roles to play, which is kind of the theme of the whole movie, is that they all have a different purpose, but they're all important.
Yeah. Well, and then when anxiety kicks them out, she kicks out all 5 of the first core emotions. So like, she didn't keep fear around, even though they would get along.
Right.
So there was still part of anxiety that was like, no, you have to go too, because you're part of the original group who wants Riley to stay the way she is, and I need to change her.
Yeah. And like, anxiety, kept the new emotions with her, but she didn't really let them do anything either. And like, there were a couple times where like envy would pop up and maybe like help, or ennui would pop up and help. But for the most part, especially as the movie went on, anxiety just like did more and more and more, and was just like running the whole ship by herself, which is what Joy tried to do in the first movie.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So like, it's like anxiety kept them there because they were helping her, but then it got to the point where she was like, I'm just going to take control over everything because I'm just going to do it.
Right. It kind of reminded me of Mean Girls.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Anxiety is Regina George, and
Ooh.
envy and embarrassment and ennui are like her lackeys that just like do whatever she says and just like blindly support her. Because envy's like always right there next to her, like, yeah, we can't do that because if she does this, then we're not gonna fit in high school. So she's just like hyping her up the whole time.
That's funny. I really like that connection.
I couldn't stop. As soon as Envy was like, yes, whatever you want to do, I'm right here. I'm with you. I'm like, oh, you're
Gretchen Wieners.
You're like the minion. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I like that. I love that connection too. Yeah, and Envy's really funny because, like, you would think, oh, Envy, like Green with Envy, she's, out to get people because she wants their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But she's more of like a FOMO. She's just the fear of missing out kind of Envy of like,
yeah,
oh, that looks like so much fun, I want to do that. Like that it's like a desire to like fit in kind of Envy, and not like a, oh, they have this toy truck and I want it, so I'm gonna take it from them and push them down in the playground. That's like toddler Envy.
Right. Yeah. Also, they had to kind of relearn everything too, because as soon as puberty came in, like the console became super touchy and sensitive, which I thought was really good. Yeah, it was a really good representation of like, yeah, you still feel sadness and anger, but like they are
intense,
very heightened as soon as that puberty
hit.
hit.
I loved that in the movie because what is it? Oh, Riley, it's like the night before hockey camp. She wakes up and her mom just like comes in and like, oh, she's like, you haven't packed yet? Riley, you gotta pack. And then Riley just goes,
yeah, she's like, what are you doing?
And it's like every emotion, and like I think the last one is sadness, and she's just like sobbing in her bed of like, I smell bad, I can't go, I smell awful, I can't go to hockey camp, I feel terrible. Like, and then like in the car she's fine.
Yeah,
I like that was a really good representation of
Yeah.
those like puberty hormones kind of hitting your kid real hard.
yeah,
Like, it's not that they're not in control, it's just that it is so different.
right. They just have to relearn how to use the console because they had such a good grasp on it, and then the puberty came in and made it so different. Yeah,
it's very sensitive now. And then when the new emotions came in, like I think it was anxiety and envy together hopped on the console and were just like do.
Yeah, they knew exactly what to do.
Yeah. So it's like they knew stuff that the first 5 didn't know. So then that's why they kind of were like, okay, I guess you all can jump on in here. But I thought that was interesting of like those first 5. Those were the ones that if they touched the console, Riley would go, whoa!
Yeah.
And then the new 5 were taking care of everything. So that was interesting too. That contrast between those two groups of emotions.
Right.
So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're new to the room, but they knew exactly what to do.
Yeah. Yep. And they all like, I think Anxiety had that like little computer laptop thing that would pop up that she could like do stuff on, and Joy's like, how'd you do that?
Yeah.
Like Joy's trying to do something, and then Anxiety's like, I'm gonna play on my laptop over here and fix it.
Yeah.
And then Ennui with the phone, and I think Envy just has one button, it looked like, that she just would hit every time of like
yeah. That's all you need for embarrassment. Yeah.
Embarrassment and Envy, I think they just had one button, and Embarrassment was like a little one. I think he would just go. Looking back at this movie from like therapeutically, I thought about how like Riley represents like a kiddo who is well supported, doesn't really have a lot of adversity going on, doesn't really have a lot of like societal challenges, except maybe that she's a girl. But that's not really represented in the movie as like a challenge. She goes to this hockey camp that's all girls. It's like not a problem. So I thought it was kind of interesting to think about how this movie would be very different if it was like a character who was facing some kind of adversity or some kind of outside stressors that were out of their control. Because the movie is mostly Riley's internal struggles.
Right.
Like, no one's bullying her, being mean to her. She's not really facing any challenges except internally. But how the movie might be different if there was a character who had some kind of outside struggle going on.
Yeah, I think, thinking just anxiety in general, like, there are plenty of kids much younger than 13 that have anxiety run in the show.
Yes, yeah,
so
very early on.
Yeah, so I think that could be different for different kids. Like, it would be a different movie if Riley was 6 and anxiety was coming along and doing the same things. But yeah, you're right. For her, like, she's very supportive parents, and she feels comfortable being honest with the people in her life about what's going on with her. So I think it made sense for the big struggles that cause a lot of anxiety to come as she's getting older and experiencing more of the real world.
Yeah. It's very interesting to think about, like if Riley were to have like ADHD, how it might look different, or to have anxiety at a young age, how that might look, how the movie itself might look different.
Yeah.
And the emotions themselves would look different, I think, too. Like, I feel like like anxiety for a lot of kiddos would pop up earlier, but not have all those other ones with them. It would be like anxiety without envy, ennui, and embarrassment. So then how does anxiety deal with being anxiety and then the core 5 emotions? And like, would anxiety take over the show all the time? And I think they probably would. They would still take over the show, but just without the other stuff going on.
Right.
And then it would just go on and on and on and on. So I just thought it was interesting to kind of think about how it would look different for, like, if Riley was a different kiddo.
Right. Well, and obviously it's a movie and you only have so much time to tell a story, but like, for a lot of people, especially someone who's like having a panic attack like Riley did in this movie, like, it's not just gonna resolve that one time and then the other emotions are like, it's okay,
right,
and then you never have anxiety again. Like,
right. Yeah, that's why. Like, what is the next movie gonna be like for Riley? Like, because at the end of the second movie, anxiety has her little recliner couch and a cup of anxiety, which is hilarious. I love puns. And she's in this like massage chair recliner, but she is right by the console so that if she's needed, she can hop back in.
Right.
So they're not like,
there's a Spanish test coming up, we gotta get ready.
Yeah. They're not like tossing her to the back of the brain. They're like, you're still up here with us, but like we're gonna take turns when we need to. We're gonna do our jobs when we need to. And Joy too takes a step back more. She realizes she doesn't need to be up there as much anymore too. So like, yeah, what's it gonna look like for Riley when she's like 15? How are these emotions going to be different? Like, are they gonna be able to work together? Is a different one gonna overpower the others now?
Yeah. Well, and one of the lines in the movie that made me tear up was when Joy said, maybe as we get older, we just feel less joy. Yeah. And I was like, that was sad. Truer words have never been spoken like that.
Yeah. That hit a lot of people.
Yeah. Because it's, it's not that it's necessarily harder to feel joy, but we just have more responsibilities and more things to think about. Yeah. And our bodies are different and our jobs are different than when we're kids. We don't have to worry about stuff when we're kids. Some kids do, but in an ideal world, kids don't have things to worry about.
In a Riley world.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a learning and growing point for Joy to realize, like, these other emotions have more responsibility now because she has more going on in her life.
Yeah. There's a lot more at play now.
Yeah.
That line got me too.
Yeah.
And I tell a lot of clients, or I talk to a lot of clients, like, psychoeducation of how to do self-care, and a lot of that is based in finding things that bring you joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're an adult, you're right, like, there's just so much other stuff going on, and it's hard to find time to find that joy again and stuff. And I think, that line is kind of like the beginning of Riley growing up and having that change happen.
Yeah.
Of, like, she's not gonna find joy in the same way she did when she was 10.
Yeah. And I think we saw that in the first movie too, because Joy was kind of the boss of Riley's head, but then when you went into her mom's head, sadness was the one that was in the middle, and then in her dad's head, anger was the one that was in the middle.
Yeah.
So I think they kind of started that idea in the first movie, but it makes more sense in this movie when she explains, like, maybe you just feel less joy when you get older.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too in both movies, where you go inside the parents' head, which was hilarious, because Dad's always thinking about hockey games. I think that's so funny. But, like, all of the emotions for both parents are, like, lined up, and then the one in the middle is kind of the, like, leader, but they're not doing everything. They're just kind of the leader.
Yeah.
And that Mom's was sadness and Dad's was anger. I thought that was really interesting. And I didn't notice this until the second movie, but, like, all of Dad's little emotions are all men, and they all look like Dad, and then Mom's were all women and all look like Mom. But in Riley's head, they're all kind of just like the base version of each emotion, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, I wonder what the creators imagine is the point where the emotions grow into what you look like.
Yeah, like, because Riley's emotions, there's some that are, like, have male voices or like are male presenting, and then some that have female voices are female presenting. So it's like, is this kind of suggesting some, like, gender stuff with Riley? Like, because that happens in teen years and puberty, of, like, your gender identity, sexual identity, like, that kind of starts to happen too.
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
we never see any other kids' brains.
I think the only time we do in the first movie, there's that boy that Riley has a crush on, and you get to, like, go into his head for a half a second, and it's, like, all, like, skateboards and half pipes and stuff like that. But I don't think we get to, like, really see a whole lot of what's going on in his head, other than it's basically just a giant skate park in that kid's head.
Yeah, we see it for like 2 seconds, and they're all running around screaming about how there's a girl talking to them.
Yes,
but I don't remember if those emotions looked like that kid, or if they looked like Riley's emotions. I can't remember.
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of interesting too.
It is interesting.
I don't know if the creators meant to do that, like, meant to bring that up, but I don't know. Disney and Pixar, they get pretty deep, so they
plan
probably
ahead.
could have. Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. It would have been cool to see inside some of the other kids, like, at the hockey camp. Like, what's that girl that Riley was obsessed with? Val?
Yeah.
Interesting to see inside her head.
Yeah, it would have been, because she was, like, so cool and calm and just, like,
but, like, what's going on in her head?
Yeah, I would love to see her brain, because I was like, everybody wants to be you, girl. Like, yeah.
Where's ego in all of this?
Yeah, what's your sense of self?
I want to
like,
know
Val?
what her sense of self looks like. Her self concept. I bet it looks a lot like Riley's. Probably. She's probably like Riley 2 years from now.
Maybe, yeah.
But we'll see if they make another one. So, anxiety removes the sense of self that Joy has curated.
Yeah.
Of, I am a good person. So anxiety encounters a moment where Riley won't follow through with something because it breaks that sense of self. I think it's like stealing that notebook from the
Well, she first gets rid of it when she has to decide if she's going to be on the team with Val.
Oh,
or
okay.
with
That's
her
what it is.
friends
with her
that she came with.
Yeah.
And she has to decide, do I want to spend this camp forming new relationships with the people I'm going to go to school with, or make this the last, like, hurrah with my good friends because we're not going to be on the same team next year.
Yeah. And I think Riley's, like, sense of self at that time was, I'm a good person. I'm going to stick with my friends because that's what I told them I would do. And anxiety sees this as a problem and gets rid of that sense of self and replaces it with, and then anxiety starts to curate a sense of self, which is kind of like this, like, jagged looking anxious orange tree thing, but doesn't have like a statement yet for a while.
Right.
But it is definitely anxiety fueled. And then eventually it gets to the point in hockey camp where I think it's like the night before the scrimmage happens, and or no, it's at the scrimmage. Riley's new sense of self that's all driven by anxiety is, I'm not good enough. And like, that was so sad.
It was, but I thought it was interesting that when it first announced I'm not good enough, anxiety was surprised.
Yeah, anxiety was sad about
Wait
it.
a second. That's not what I intended it to be, because her whole goal is to keep her safe. So she thought, if I plant these beliefs of, if I try harder, I'll make the team, and if I am friends with Val, the other girls will like me, all those beliefs that were kind of slowly forming this sense of self, she was not expecting it to come out as, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Because she was trying so hard to be the best.
Yeah.
So she was surprised when that happened, even though she's the one that made it that way.
That made it that way. Yeah, I just, like, it was all the characters' faces when the, like, tree, I keep calling it a tree because that's what it looks like.
It looks like a tree, yeah.
The belief tree that anxiety made says, I'm not good enough. They were all just like,
yeah.
But anxiety especially was like, what? It was so, like, it was just so sad to see that reaction.
But that's what anxiety does. Like, like the purpose of having anxiety is our brains trying to keep us safe and kind of perceiving things as bigger threats than they are. But we're not purposefully trying to sabotage ourselves for the most part.
Right.
And so forming these beliefs that we don't really want to have about ourselves, but we still do sometimes, is not healthy or adaptive, but it's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of anxiety's little memory bubbles that she put into the deep brain, or whatever it's called, where the roots came up, they were all things like, if I can be friends with Val, then we will be fine in high school. If I can win this scrimmage with Val, then, or with my team, then I will get onto the Firehawks team.
Right.
If I do this, then this will happen. And so that mentality is going to result in, I'm not good enough because I can't reach these if-then situations.
Yeah.
And so that's where that I'm not good enough pops up.
Right. Yeah.
No. Yeah. That was very interesting too. This whole movie's interesting. That's my word of the day.
Yeah.
Okay. Riley's panic attack.
Yes. Well, first, can we backtrack to, because I think it fits in well with, like, the beliefs that anxiety is choosing to form the tree. That scene where where anxiety is putting all the little worker guys in the cubicles.
The projection room.
Yes, the projection room. And she was like, we have to think of every possible situation that could happen so that we can decide what to do.
Yeah.
And they were all worst case scenarios.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, as someone with anxiety that does that, hilarious.
Perfect
I
representation.
love that representation.
Like, yes, that's exactly what's
and
happening.
Like, Riley can't sleep while it's happening. She's like, because the projection room is on in her brain, so she can't go to sleep. But yeah, I was like, oh, I feel so seen / called out right now.
Yep.
I was like, I will stay up all night thinking of worst case scenarios. I've gotten a lot better, but it's not worst case scenarios, but I still will stay up and be like, oh, this might happen. Oh my gosh, what if this happens?
Right. And it's always the worst case scenario, because then when Joy comes in and is like, okay, but what if we score all the goals and everybody loves us and it turns out really great? And Anxiety's like, no, we're not going to entertain the positive outcomes because we need to be prepared for the negative outcomes.
Negative.
Yeah.
I thought that was so powerful, though, of like Joy and the other emotions would pop in and change those projections to like different outcomes. And some of them were, oh, you lose the game, but you get everyone's respect because you're a good team player about it. And then one was like, you paint your nails the Firehawks colors and everyone thinks you're super cool and does it too. I think that's something that I think Disgust put on there or whatever, of just like all of these different scenarios where like some of the outcomes might be you don't get on the team, but it's also not 100% a bad thing either.
Right.
Like there are other outcomes even if you don't get on the team or even if you don't make friends with this person. And I thought that was kind of a good representation of how CBT would work for like a kiddo with anxiety or a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know some therapists don't like cognitive behavioral therapy.
I personally don't.
You don't?
No, I don't really like I think it works for some people, but I think some therapists that use CBT kind of use it as a blanket cover for treatment of everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's super great. I think it's a good place to start, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like what a lot of people think of when they think of therapy is like we examine your thoughts and we challenge the unhealthy ones and reword them into more helpful ones.
Right. Yeah.
And that's kind of what Joy was trying to do. She was trying to take like the catastrophizing of like this is going to happen and it's going to be terrible and then the whole world is going to end and you're just going to sit alone all year in high school and just be miserable.
Yeah.
And Joy was trying to come in and be like, but what if
something
there are other
happens?
Possibilities of things that could happen and they're not all terrible. So that's kind of baby CBT is
like if I were to try and explain CBT to someone, I would show them that clip. Like this is kind of what we're going for. I have a lot of opinions about CBT. We could talk about that another day, but
sure.
I have a lot of opinions in general, which is why we have a podcast, you guys. But yeah, that projection room thing, I felt like that was a good representation of like reframing thoughts and trying like how to challenge worst case scenario thoughts into other what if situations.
Right.
Whether they have the outcome you want or not, there are other options and what ifs. So that was really cool. I like that a lot too.
Yeah, and I just thought it was interesting how Anxiety was refusing to entertain any scenarios that might be positive because okay, if it's positive then it's great, but we need to prepare for
the bad,
worst case.
For the worst. Yeah. Riley's panic attack. Yeah. Well, what were your thoughts about that scene?
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And I cried again.
Yeah, same.
And I thought it was really like just well done. Like how do you the creativity to understand what a panic attack is and then depict it so that people who have never experienced a panic attack would understand what it's like.
Yeah.
Was so amazing.
Yeah.
The chaos that was happening outside and then the chaos that was happening inside her brain. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Panic attacks aren't awesome, but it was a really good representation.
It was a good representation of something awful that so many people go through. But yeah, I really appreciated the representation. I thought again was kind of looking at it. I was like, okay, therapeutically, what's going on? But Riley kind of went through like fight, flight, freeze leading up to that panic attack, with freeze being like the actual panic attack. so like it was during the hockey scrimmage thing. She was getting real frustrated with herself, and anxiety was really pushing her internally to like be more aggressive playing, basically.
Right.
So I saw that as kind of almost like a fight response to that anxious fear.
Yeah.
And then she was so aggressive with her playing that she like shoulder checked her friend really hard and hurt her. And so that just kind of like throws Riley for a loop, because that's super against her self-concept.
Right.
And so then she gets sent to the penalty box, which isn't completely like a flight response, but I think even if she wasn't sent to the penalty box, Riley would probably get the heck out of there at that point. She avoided going to her friend. She avoided making eye contact with people or like saying anything. And she just like went to the penalty box. And I kind of saw that as like a flight response of like to that anxiety of, I just hurt my friend, but I don't know what to do about it. I'm just gonna go.
Right. Instead of facing the consequences of it.
Gonna remove myself.
Yeah.
And then once she gets to the penalty box, she has that panic attack of where anxiety is making like a little tornado in her head and freezes.
Right.
And then that's where that panic attack happens.
Right.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. An interesting thought process of like, okay, so like fight, flight, freeze, what's going on here? Where's that like, what is it? The vagus nerve.
Yeah.
The, oh my gosh. There's a word for it, for the whole theory of your like vagus nerve and your fight, flight, freeze responses. Polyvagal theory. Yeah. There we go. It's like polyvagal theory, kind of applying that to that moment to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And I also saw that with anxiety herself too, of like when anxiety is at the controls at the console during the scrimmage, she pushes everyone out of the way. She takes over. She's kind of like being a little bit of aggressive, which is kind of that fight response. And then when things start to go wrong, that's when she starts that spiraling kind of flight thing of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to try everything at once and see what happens. And then when Joy pushes in through that little tornado, it like looks like anxiety's flying around and doing everything, but in reality she's just kind of like stuck at the controls and like holding on for dear life. She's frozen, literally frozen. So that combination of the fight, flight, freeze responses that are happening to Riley, but also to like anxiety herself.
Yeah. Well, and it's a good representation of that panic attack too, because at that moment anxiety has been the whole time, the whole movie, planning ahead for every possible scenario. If this happens, this is what I'm going to do. If to prevent this, I need to do this. And then she got surprised by the tree saying, I'm not good enough. And she wasn't expecting that. So something now she doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so when a panic attack is happening, your anxiety has run out of ideas.
Yeah.
And doesn't know what to do anymore. So now we're just like, I guess I'll die.
Yep.
Like,
which is what it feels like when you have a panic attack. You feel like you are dying.
Yeah.
The first time I had a panic attack, I thought I was having a stroke.
Uh-huh.
It was not a stroke. It was a panic attack. So, but yeah, your body is like, oh, I guess, yep, we're going to die now.
Yep.
That's the only thing we can do.
Yeah. So, yeah, anxiety didn't know what to do either, because the whole movie she's like taking control and being like, no, listen, we have to forge this path so that Riley's ready for high school, and Riley has to be this kind of person. And so here's all the steps we need to take. And then when it didn't work out, she was like, oh, crap.
I didn't plan for it not working out.
Right. So now I have no idea what to do. And maybe Joy was right, and maybe I should have done this and this and this, and now we are caught up in the past and spiraling.
Yeah. And then during that, I think it's when she pulls anxiety out of there is when they all go and like surround the little self-concept and it starts to change.
Well,
is that
yeah,
when that
because
happens?
in order for Joy and the other emotions to get back to headquarters, they have to ride that avalanche of all of the suppressed memories that Joy had done. And so then they take root in that belief system.
That's right.
And form that self-concept that changes into different things like, I'm a good friend, sometimes I'm selfish, I'm a good person, sometimes I have mean thoughts. Like, all the different things that actually make up your sense of self that she had been denying.
Yeah. That's right. That was so powerful. That, like, yeah, because she basically, Riley's brain got flooded with all of those suppressed memories.
Another reason why she had a panic attack.
Which has probably made her panic attack feel a little worse when that happened. But then it started to impact her self-concept. And it turns out your self-concept can be more than one thing, and it can be things that conflict a little bit, but none of them are like the only thing.
Right.
I'm a good friend, but I'm mean sometimes.
Right.
So that was just I thought that was very powerful, in that instead of Riley's return to a self-concept of I'm a good person, her self-concept is ever evolving.
Yes.
Which I think is really important, especially for teenagers, because teenagers kind of are going into it of, I'm trying out all these different identities, but I'm gonna find the one that is me. When in reality, it's like, you're probably gonna change over and over again.
We contain multitudes.
Yes. Yeah. We are made of infinite stardust, or whatever it is. It's a really good quote. I just can't remember it.
I can't either. But yeah, no, it's just, I think the fact that, like, all of those memories literally came flooding back to her, because, like, all the stuff, like, the ones I remember, like, oh, I walked into the screen door at grandma's, and those kinds of things that, like, you don't really want to remember, but you do, and they still, you know, they're not, like, the core memories that make up your personality islands, but they make up your belief system and your sense of self.
Yeah.
And that can be multiple things.
Yes. Yeah. I wish they had talked about more, or like incorporated those islands a little more again, but I guess the whole point was that those were kind of like cemented at that point for Riley. So it's like, we don't really need to talk about these because they're here and they're here to stay. Which I guess, I mean, the islands are going to change, like Family Island changed.
Right. And
Friendship Island changed. But just more like in size or like impact, and less that they're completely gone.
Yeah, this one was much more focused on how your beliefs shape your decisions.
Yeah. And that you had more than one.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I feel like I have to remind preteens and teens a lot of the time, is that you're more than just like one thing. Like, there are many different things that you can be. Yeah. And you can be all of them at the same time.
Right.
Or you can just be like some of them some of the time.
But I think that's a kind of a, you know, it's something that you have to learn through your own experiences, but I think it's also something that, like, society and parents push on people sometimes, like, no, you're a good kid, that's not something you would do. Right. So then it's like, okay, so who am I? Because my friends are expecting me to be this cool person who does these things. My parents are expecting me to be this good kid that does these things. And I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because, I've definitely heard parents say, like, along the lines of, oh, so-and-so, they're such a good kid. I don't know what's going on. They're making all of these bad decisions, dumb decisions. But they're, like, such a good kid. I don't know what's going on. And then you're like, well, your kid literally just hit puberty, and they just started middle school, and they have a lot more independence than they did before. And so they're going to, developmentally, that's a time, like a cooking pot for them to just do all kinds of stuff you would not expect them to do.
Right.
When they were like 9 or 10, this would be unheard of. But now they're at a place where they're going to experiment. They're going to, like, try things out. They're going to make dumb decisions. because things are literally chemically changing.
Right.
And also just like mentally, their brains are different. They're not the same.
Yeah. And all of the kids are developing at different paces.
Yeah.
So, especially in freaking middle school, I feel so
Ooh,
terrible.
cross
Middle school, I do not want to step foot in a middle school ever again in my life because there's so much range of like, this kid just started developing and maybe they're the oldest child, so they're still doing a lot of little kid things because that's what they do at home. And then there's like these other kids who have to mature super fast because of their home life, and they hit puberty when they were 10, and so they're like 3 feet taller than everybody else, and it's like, where do I fit in here? Because I don't know where I'm at.
Yeah, the variance, the like variety of where kids developmentally are when they're in middle school is wild. It is all over the place. All over the place. It's just, yeah, you're right. I don't really want to ever have to set foot in a middle school ever again.
I just feel so bad for them. Every time I see a middle schooler comes to see me, I'm like, well,
they're my favorite, though.
Your life is just harder than everybody else's. I'm sorry.
It really literally is. I'm validating you right now. You, as a middle schooler, your life is harder than everyone else's. I'm not exaggerating. We're laughing, but it's true.
It's true.
It's so true. Your life is literally the hardest right now. It will be over eventually.
Yeah.
But middle school is the worst, and it is the hardest. And
it's
3
years. Yeah. I don't know. When I grew up, my middle school was only 7th and 8th grade.
I wish they were all like that.
When I moved here and I was like, you have to go to middle school in 6th grade, you poor baby. Like,
yeah.
What are you doing, a little 11, 12-year-old?
Yeah. It was terrible being a middle schooler here. It was awful. And I was like out in the middle of nowhere as a middle schooler too. So it was like, yeah, it was rough.
Yeah. Ugh, I can't imagine.
It was rough.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the anxiety attack, for sure, was a really good representation. And then I loved everything about her getting out of the panic attack.
Yeah.
Just like the way they depicted grounding and like bringing yourself back to your body and the environment was beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. She used all her senses. And it was just exactly what I would have been telling her to do if I was there sitting next to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really loved also that Riley was kind of able to, like, she was able to work through her panic attack and be feeling better and okay before her friends came to help her.
Yes.
So I thought that was powerful of like, Riley was able to help herself. She was able to do it herself. And then her friends came and helped her the rest of the way to feeling better.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really powerful because she didn't really she needed rescuing, but the only person that could rescue her was herself. And she's rescuing herself from herself as well. So, yeah. And that's why she's the only person who could help her in that moment.
Yeah. But I really liked the depiction of the grounding, them showing her hand on the bench and feeling
she like
the bench.
picked up her hockey stick and was like messing with the tape, listening to the ice. It was the ice or something.
Yeah. She was listening to the sound of the skates on the ice, and then like feeling the cold air and that kind of stuff. Just kind of focusing on very small things. Yeah, deep breathing and it was. Beautiful is the word I can describe because I was like, oh,
that is like definitely a clip I'm going to show people, especially when I get a lot of resistance when I recommend breathing as a technique for coping with anxiety. I get a lot of people who are like, I can't do that, or it doesn't work for me.
Right. But yeah, most people haven't been taught how to do a appropriate deep breath.
Yeah.
An actual effective deep breath.
Yeah. And then we have to practice that and talk about that. But that kind of like resistance to trying that stuff is like, oh, well, I'm going to show you this clip from this movie because it does work, and it is an animated movie, but I think kids also just learn a lot better when they see things done,
Right.
and
It's
when they do them for
simplified, but
themselves. Yeah,
what's wrong with that?
it makes sense to me. But yeah, that whole process was really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then the clip at the very end of the movie where like Riley's at her locker and like her hair's still a mess because she like cut her own bangs or something in the
She
beginning
dyed
of the movie, or she dyed them. Yeah. And like her hair's kind of a mess. You see her braces and like her little crooked teeth and everything, but it's like the I think it's Joy says something about like Riley is Riley, like she is who she is right now, and everything is like she is fine as she is. And I thought that was cool too, of like she didn't get on the Firehawks or whatever like she wanted to. She didn't get everything that anxiety said that they were going to work on and work towards getting, but that's okay because she is who she is and she's still a good person.
Right. And there's still a lot that worked out.
Yeah.
She still is friends with the two friends that she had at the beginning, and she's friends with the hockey team people.
Yeah. They're still friends even though she's not on the team, and
Yeah.
all that stuff was still good.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. I also just randomly remembered, I was thinking of funny moments from the movie. The deep dark secret room.
Yes. Yeah.
That she had a crush on the like Mortal Kombat anime guy with
like
the purple hair.
lamest power. Like,
And I love that so much because they like cut to Riley playing video games with her friends, and they're like, why do you always pick him? He has the worst like power move, and his power move is like rolling like a little pill bug and
just
like
dropping his gigantic sword.
Yeah. I thought that was so funny though, because like I did that too. I would always pick, like in Mario Super Brothers, who was it I would always pick? I want to say Link. It was Link or Zelda, honestly. One of them.
Well, Link is the soldier guy, and
Yeah,
Zelda's the princess.
Zelda's the princess.
Yeah.
I probably would bounce back and forth between those two because
Okay.
I had a crush on both of them.
Mm-hmm.
But someone from Super Mario Brothers I would always pick because I liked them. And then they had like the worst power move, and I would always lose, but I was like, I don't care. I just really like this character.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was so funny. I about peed my pants laughing in the movie theater at that point. I just thought that was so funny. And then I can't remember the other ones because that one was just so funny.
Yeah.
But there was the big deep dark secret.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what he was or what he represented. Oh, and then that goofy little dog from the TV show that she still watched.
Yeah, she still likes that show, but
Yeah.
she has to hide it. It's a secret.
I thought that was so funny.
Then frickin' Pouchy. comes
Pouchy,
back.
and then Anger takes Pouchy, and it like uses.
It shows up at the end too. He still has
Yeah,
Pouchy.
He still has Pouchy, and then I can't remember exactly. Gosh, I should have watched this movie again before today.
Yeah.
But something they like recall Pouchy to come help them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just like reaching their full arms into Pouchy's gaping mouth and wrenching things out of Pouchy, and he's like he's like choking and gagging as they're like
Yes.
wrenching, and it's just dynamite.
Yep.
Just sticks and sticks of
Yeah.
dynamite. That was another time I about peed myself laughing. I was like, this is a kid's movie, but that
Yeah.
was kind of hard
He
to watch.
Yeah, Pouchy starts singing his little song about
And they
what
just
do we need?
pull him from the sky, and like they're all wrenching things out of Pouchy, and then he's just like lays there like
Poor
That
Pouchy.
was so funny. I was just like, oh my god. I know this is like an imaginary world and stuff, but whoa.
Yeah.
That was kind of weird, like scary to watch for a second there. So funny. I can't remember what the big dark secret, what he was.
They said it it was like a after credits.
Oh, I think I missed it then.
Okay. I mean, I can tell you what it is.
You want to tell me what it is?
Yeah.
What was the Riley's big dark hulking secret?
She burned a hole in a rug at one point.
Oh my god. Okay.
That was it.
When she was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. her deepest shame? Well, it was probably during that stage of development of shame.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Burned a hole in a carpet.
Yep,
That's funny.
the big dark secret.
That's such a like cliche deep dark secret.
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard that from like the Brady Bunch or something.
Probably. Yeah. I mean,
from like old TV.
Yeah, but I could see how it would be.
Yeah.
Really big shameful. Like, what were you doing?
Why were you
a
putting
device that can burn things?
Yeah. Why did you have a lighter?
Yeah.
I had just talking about what the purpose of these new emotions were.
Okay.
So anxiety kind of details it herself. She is there to protect Riley from the big bad stuff that might happen that she can't see. So then what would envy's purpose be?
I think envy helps kind of form identity a little bit. Kind of gets you to look at things that you might not have thought about being interested in before. I think it's just kind of a natural emotion to want things that other people have. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I thought about envy as kind of like a motivator almost. Of like, so like you see someone who's really good at hockey and you're like, ooh, I want to be good at hockey too. And then you're motivated to like practice and be better at hockey. So that's kind of what I feel like envy's role is in the like in a role of like growing somehow.
Yeah.
Envy helps with providing like motivation.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that explanation.
Like people who make like vision boards will put like, this is the like what I want to look like or whatever, or like this is what I want my I always think of people making vision boards for like their office or for like designing their house, but like this is what I want it to look like, that kind of a thing. I feel like that's what envy kind of provides, is like you said, like you like see things that you want and you just work harder to get those things.
Yeah.
Once you see them.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. I think all of the new emotions are more focused on like social roles or like helping Riley in a social sense than in anything else.
Yeah.
Like the core emotions are kind of like helping Riley to grow as a person and like survive basically. And then these new emotions are providing support for her for like her social life.
Yeah.
That's
and
kind
her personality.
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah. That's kind of what I'm imagining their like whole purpose is.
Yeah, because embarrassment is kind of like teaching you about mistakes and
yeah.
Yeah,
and I love embarrassment in the movie. It's so cute. But that like society is kind of a gross thing that we have to follow sometimes, but there are social norms that we need to accept and follow, and embarrassment is a feeling we get when we kind of push those social norms like too far. And embarrassment is telling us, okay, like that wasn't good, that wasn't like a good way to go about that, we're gonna do better next time. But like an awareness of breaking or pushing some kind of social norm that wasn't supposed to be pushed that far.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then what about ennui?
I love ennui. That one was a hard one for me to think about, like what is the purpose of being bored? So I just thought of like, what do I do when I'm bored? And like, yeah, I scroll on TikTok forever. Should not do that. But you know, in a more like when I was a teenager, when I was 13, when I was bored, what did I do? And I did a lot of like creative stuff when I got bored. I would like paint and draw. I wrote these stories, like fantasy stories, and wrote and put on plays for my family like a weirdo. But I would just become very creative when I got bored. And so I feel like the purpose of ennui is to provide opportunity to be creative.
Yeah.
Which is something that is really hard to do, I feel like, in this day and age, because we have phones on our pockets all the time. But the like original purpose is to provide an opportunity to be creative, which being creative could be seen as like self-care or like a source of joy for people. So that's kind of how I made boredom make sense as like a social something, almost not even social, but like something to help, as a helpful emotion.
Yeah.
And I feel like we all feel boredom and ennui, but I don't think we take advantage of that feeling as something we can use, as something that can be useful to us as a creative opportunity.
Yeah.
So homework, you guys. If you get bored, instead of scrolling on social media, put your phone on do not disturb, go put it away, whatever, and try to do something creative. Just like pencil and paper. Draw or write or doodle or whatever, but like don't use your phone.
Dance.
Yeah, dance.
Yeah.
Dance around. Cook. Some people like to cook when they get bored, which is then the end result is that you get to eat, which is always nice. But yeah, like if you start to feel bored, don't combat it immediately with technology. Try something more organic. Try something more, I don't know, natural to how your brain works, and be creative a little bit.
Yeah. Make something new.
Yeah, make something new.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't look pretty, it doesn't matter. You made it, and that's cool. You used a part of your brain that does not get used very often as adults to make something. So you need to do that more.
This movie was 96 minutes long, and we talked for almost 90 minutes.
Woo!
A long episode.
Which, yeah, I mean, it's to be expected.
Yeah.
Talking about a movie, a very, very good movie that everyone needs to go watch.
I really liked it, and I will definitely be watching it again once it's available for streaming. Yeah, I mean, both movies are just like really good examples of how to explain emotions and thoughts and behaviors. So I'm grateful that they exist.
Yes, yeah. I saw this a lot all over Reddit too. People talking about, I wish this movie came out when I was Riley's age. Yeah. But it's great that we have it now.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting to think about how a child would interpret it as they're like just now newly experiencing it, and then us as adults watching it and being like, oh, that's why.
Sense.
Yeah.
That's why I was like that when I was 13.
Yeah. Let us know what you thought about Inside Out 2 and your favorite parts and the parts that spoke to you and your emotions.
Yeah.
And what as therapists we could bring to therapy from this movie. We'll skip recommendation corner because I don't really have anything.
My recommendation was go watch this movie.
Go watch Inside Out and go do something creative.
Yes, go watch Inside Out, and if you feel bored this next week or so, do something creative.
Yes. And comment on our podcast and subscribe.
Share what you did if you made something.
Yeah.
That would be cool to see, like, if you made a little drawing or you cooked yourself something that you don't get to cook very often. I want to see that.
Yeah, if you make something cool, you can send it to us on our Instagram, Mental Health Dumpster Fire, and maybe we'll put it on our story or something.
Yeah, we'll share it.
Yeah. Unless it's bad. Just kidding.
I was like, what would be bad?
Real artists only.
No. Everyone's an artist.
I know, I was kidding.
Oh my
I
goodness.
just wanted to make everybody feel embarrassed and anxious.
Well, now we've given you all anxiety about trying to be creative, which is not what we wanted to happen, but sorry.
I'm kidding, you're all artists.
You're all beautiful. We love you all.
We love each and every one of you. Send us your art or dances or food.
Send us your little joyful creative moments.
Yes. And come back and join us next time when I insult you some more. Bye.
Bye.